Hello, you dirty potters. How are you today?
Oh my god, it's 2 Glaze reviews in 1 month and it's not Amico? Oh, praise Jesus.
Welcome to another episode of Glaze Review, where I take glazes like this off the shelf that you would usually see in your local pottery shops. I test them for you on white clay, on brown clay, and I usually mix them with some of my own homemade glazes just to see if they play well with other glazes, even if they're homemade. Today we're going to be testing out Inferno Red by KY Mudworks. I've never heard of this company until a friend of the channel, Ryan Durbin, pointed this out to me. He used it on one of his pots. I asked him what it was. I thought it was a fantastic red. Big shout out to Ryan. Thank you for pointing me in the right direction. But I've also been looking for a distributor that's not Amico. As much as I love Amico, I do love Amico. Don't get me wrong. I'm a strong Amico boy, all right? I'm just saying, variety is what keeps the relationship alive. Today we actually have a little bit of a twist because I'm preparing for the empty bowls donation coming up soon, and I have barely any room left in my kiln. This entire thing is full of bowls for the Empty Bowl Foundation and Food Banks of America in Sacramento.
Oh, Donte, there's some more space right there.
No, there's not. No, there's really not. I might be able to fit those bowls in there if the kiln gods let me. Because of that, unfortunately, I only have enough space for 2 mugs, but I picked some good ones. This one right here is a B-mix clay body with grog, and it has a lot of texture on it. I picked this cup out because I wanted to see if this Inferno Red from KY Mudworks has any type of textural depth to it if I put it on. Ryan Durbin's mug looked fantastic, so I'm expecting great things from this glaze. I also have this mug right here that has texture in it, but the texture carries downwards instead of horizontal, right? So this is a little more vertical, it's a little more horizontal. The glaze doesn't run because it has to run into these kind of hurdles as it goes down, so I don't expect it to run as much. But I think if I put this with my Lumos glaze, it'll run nice and deep like it did with that last glaze review we had. So unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to fit our brown clays test out in the kiln. I know, I'm sorry, I usually test it out on white clay and a brown clay for you. I've even made it part of the intro, but I don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference. So today we're just gonna do these 2 white stoneware B-mix ones, all right? Okay, handshake, click like button, love you long time. I just want to stop real quick and say this is very interesting to me. For those of you who've been with the channel for quite some time, you know we have reviewed like 20 different Amico glazes in this style already. And I'm sorry to keep mentioning them, but usually Amico, I think, I'm like 90% sure, puts something in their glaze called CMC gum, which makes it a type of like brushable glaze. It's really just a glaze thickener. But I also make my own glazes on top of used store-bought glazes. This, I'm not gonna say it doesn't have any in there, but it is a lot more liquidy than the regular CMC gum-based bottle glazes that I would buy. And I actually kind of enjoy this because my glaze chemist brain goes, ooh, somebody made this. Not like the other glazes aren't made, it's just my brain goes, this is more akin to a handmade glaze than not, you know? And for some reason that excites my pottery glaze maker brain. You know what I'm gonna do actually, because I'm a bit excited right now for this, is I'm gonna pull out the test towel bucket, and I'm pretty sure, these are all stoneware, I'm pretty sure I have 1 porcelain, there it is. There's the 1 porcelain test towel that I have left. I'm gonna test this and I'm gonna put it on Instagram or Twitter or something so that everybody can see this glaze because I think it's gonna turn out a banger. I have high hopes for this glaze. I already mixed it pretty well, so we're just gonna dip 1 dip here, all the way down to the Gucci socks. You know, in the last video of glaze review, I mean the one literally before this video, the most previous glaze review before this one you're getting right now, I did a testile where I brushed on a testile on an actual product, actually a bowl, and then I did one where I poured it on, because I almost always pour my bottled glazes on. And this is just because over like my 10 years of experience, I've learned that they do a lot better when you pour them on. But to be fair, that's mostly been with other glazes. I've never done a KY Mudworks glaze in my entire life. So I have a very strong urge to brush one on right now, but I don't have enough space in my kiln. So if I get one, I will post it on my Twitter, so that way you know exactly what it looks like. If I have enough space, I'm probably not gonna record me doing it, and I probably don't have enough space. But if I ever do, I promise I will give you one. That being said, this has been a pretty tried and true method, but something's telling me to like brush one on just because. I can already hear you little nerds. Oh, there's always more space in the kiln. Okay, look, this is the smallest teacup I have. It's like 2 by 2, maybe, all right? Let's go, huh? You wanna fight about this? Let's go. Oh, there's always more space in the kiln. You're that same boss who's like, there's always more work to be done. It's not gonna fit, Cheryl. It's not gonna fit, okay? Oh, why don't you just move some things around? How about you come here to my house and unload and reload my entire kiln load, huh? How about you? Hey, you click the like, shut up and click the like button. All right, so as we usually do, let's review what we're gonna be putting inside the kiln. This is a beam mix with grog clay body that I'm putting inside the kiln with KY Mudworks Cone 6 Inferno Red. This is a poured on product like most of my products. I chose this one because it has fantastic horizontal texture. I really hope that it grabs onto some of these slip patterns here. This one here has a good amount of texture as well, but it's more vertical than anything else. I'm doing this one because sometimes if I get a very melty glaze, it goes into the little patterns right here and it'll drip down, but it doesn't make it all the way down. It looks fantastic. Here's a picture of what we had in the last glaze review, and it almost looks like a crystal glaze. I'm really hoping for something of the same effect to happen to this mug right here. And of course, we also have our test style right here, just because I want a good record of what this should look like on a clean porcelain clay body with no grog inside of it. I really want to know what it should look like. And porcelain is a fantastic indicator of what a glaze ought to look like if it's on a clean, no grog, no extra additives, nothing like that clay body. This is fairly clean in comparison to most other stoneware clay bodies. All right, with that being said, let's put them in the kiln. Okay, now that everything's out of the kiln, let's take a look at the test style first. Bit of a side story, I have a really bad habit of putting my kiln wash on extremely thick onto my shelves, and this was not a very stable testile. Like, this thing knocks over at, okay, well, it's not doing it now, thank you. But this thing knocked over in the middle of the firing, so I turned it around and I was like, oh no, that's not good.
Ew.
It's not like the back of the testile matters more than the front, because the front's the thing that has the texture on it. So you get to see what happens whenever this glaze has texture. But I do find it hilarious that now that I have this, like, I have this as a testile that I have to save. You can see part of the kiln shelf like melded onto the testile. That is never going to come off in its entire life. As you might remember, there are 2 mugs, and I'm going to show you them at the same time because they're relatively the same exact thing. The only difference is that I put Lumos on the top of this, and this glaze is powerful enough to where you can barely see the effect of my Lumos. If you look really closely about right there, you can see where the Lumos tried to make nice with the entirety of the glaze, but it didn't work out. I really don't see a difference in between this and the test style that was just double dipped. So there's virtually no difference to me. On top of that, the Lumos did make it a bit more melty, so it did run off the shelf and kind of ruin the mug. The neat thing upon further inspection, and I do this with some mugs, I don't think I've told you this before, is that I usually pour on the entirety of my mug, right? I don't like brushing very much, but I will often miss the middle bottom of a cup and just brush it on anyway, so I don't have to dip the entire thing and compromise maybe a third layer or a second layer. If you look at the bottom of this cup, even though I only brushed on 2 layers versus dipping the entirety of the mug, it came out virtually the same, which tells me if I brushed this on, it would turn out pretty much the same. And that little piece of evidence isn't just found here, it's also found in the other mug with the slip-like texture on it that I glazed here. Except for some reason, this mug turned out a little bit more bright than the other mug did. So if you look at this one, it's a tiny bit darker, this one's a tiny bit lighter, and I really do appreciate this lightness. I wish all of my tests came out like this. This is a fantastic red, especially for an oxidation kiln. I like this a lot, actually. I wish it was a bit lighter, but I do understand that reds are hard to get in an oxidation kiln without some form of like mason stain or tin chrome or whatever. So I'm kind of in love with the super high iron saturated. I don't know what's in this. I make my own glazes and I'm still like, I have no idea what's in this. The awesome part for me about this mug is that the evidence that I found on the bottom of this cup when I was like, oh, I think I could brush it on and you get essentially the same exact texture and color is echoed right here. I had to brush the bottom of this as well, and it turned out relatively the same if you look right there and you look right there. This is brushed on with only like 1.5 layers, as for the other one I showed you is about 2 layers. But keep in mind that most brushable glazes have a standard of 3 to 4 to get the desired effect that you would see on the bottle. So I'm pretty happy with this bit of evidence right here. Also, and I'm sure that some of you have already spotted it, but there's a tiny bit of runnage right there at the foot. I will say that this glaze is a tiny bit runny. And I say a tiny bit runny because my layers got poured on, so the amount of layers I have per test are probably about 4 or 5. But this isn't so runny that I couldn't handle it. If I knew it was a smidge runny, I would have just made this a tiny bit higher, most likely like I did right here. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. I was actually super excited to test something that's not an Amoco glaze. Not like I don't love Amoco. Amoco, if you're watching this, I do love you. I really do. I will forever stan your glazes. But it makes me really happy to find another company like KY Mudworks that makes glazes that are on par with other companies. Because honestly, if I'm being honest with you, there's like 5 or 6 glaze companies that I know of, and I only really I'm not gonna say which ones, but I only trust like 3 of them to give me the proper representation of what's on the bottle or words from other people. So when Ryan Durbin was like, this is a good glaze, I trust him enough to know that I should probably test this out. And you know what? Came out fantastic. I'm actually so impressed with KY Mudworks Inferno Red that I'm going to go back to the website and buy some other glazes from them. I just want to see, like, I'm kind of running out of glazes to test because, like, here's a good example, right? As much as I love these two glazes are essentially the same exact glaze to me. Like, in my mind, this is a base with mason stain in it, and they just put more mason stain in this one than they did in this one. But these are the same melt, the same glaze, the same type of opacity. These are the same glaze to me. But if I could produce a glaze just like this, I would not search for another red unless I wanted a bit brighter. And at that point, I'd probably know how to make it. But again, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. If you would like to see me review or test any other glazes, let me know. You can always send them to my P.O. box or just leave it in the comments down below. I'll probably go to the store, pick it up, and we'll see what we can do with it on screen. Remember to click all the YouTube buttons, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week.
Thank you for your patronage.
I was searching for something familiar to test on screen, and I didn't see anything I liked until I was like, oh, KY. That's a company I'm familiar with. About to grab this off the shelf.